Ladies and gentlemen, it's another power panel here on the barracks, and I have an exciting show for everyone today. So let's get started. Who are our lovely guests on this show today? One of them is a regular co-host, but may I introduce Mr. Teray of Hard Targets? How are you doing today, good sir?
You know, it's good to be here as a very special guest rather than the many tentacled octopus just pulling the strings from behind the scenes. I'm excited to tell you how I really feel today.
There you go. Good stuff. And now our other guest today, formerly known as Non-Smoker, now going by Ben. Please introduce yourself to our audience today.
Thank you, sir. Yes, this is the former non-smoker, currently known as Ben, which is just my actual God-given name. Also going under the handle Struggle Session Radio. I host a Twitch channel show, politics stream, and a real-life radio show out at WUSB in Stony Brook. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I just have a quick question. Now that you're formerly non-smoker, does that mean you are now a Marlboro communist?
Dude, I was fucking Marlboro all the way for years, but I have not succumbed to the temptations of nicotine, no, although it is very tempting.
Marlboro was the first brand that I started smoking when I just decided to start smoking one day. I was like 22, and I walked into a gas station. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna smoke me a cigarette. Got a Marlboro Red. It's like this seems like a good one, but I'm ashamed to say that my when I was smoking, my regulars was Parliament Ultra Lights.
Ooh.
What?
Why?
Why, dude?
The cigarette of choice for sorority girls.
And like moms, dude. Come on, ultralights.
Because I didn't actually like smoking. I was just like, oh,
obviously.
Like one a line cook when I was working at a diner once gave me Camel unfiltered. I almost died that day.
All right. Well, now, with that being said, though, I think it's time for us to get into our program today. So, first on the agenda, the BRIC Summit. What happened? And why is my phone at 15% even though it's on the charger? That's a problem, ladies and gentlemen. Give me one moment. Teray, if you could just hold us while I try to figure out what the hell is going on.
Ask me the question. And I'll go as long as my little heart can take it. But yes, while we are charging our devices, while we are battling the crumbling Wi-Fi infrastructure that Bidenomics has left us fighting against, make sure to like the stream, whether you're watching on the Yankee Tankies YouTube channel, whether you're watching on Ben's a myriad of dark web, Silk Road channels, Twitch streams, pirate radio broadcasts, carrier pigeon leaflets dropped into your chimney like a magical Santa Claus. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment, because part of the power panel is we want to know what y'all are thinking. What's the word, Yankee? How's that?
It sounds like we are all set. We're all good in the hood. Now, with that being said, though, I'll go back to what we were talking about here. The BRIC Summit, not that long ago. Incredible events. 6 new countries have now joined BRICS. What is the future of BRICS right now? Well, first of all, let's see who the 6 countries are that recently joined. We have Iran, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, which is an incredible one, Egypt, Argentina, and then Ethiopia. So that is an incredible grouping of countries. Personally, I would say Saudi Arabia is the one that floors me the most. But first, to start off, Ben, could you tell us what do you think about this whole situation? What is unique about these 6 countries now that have joined BRICS?
I mean, it's fascinating, man. Like, you know, I don't know about you guys, but it's really just insane to think that BRICS was essentially economic terminology to like guide people on into why they should invest in emerging markets. It was something made up by like I think his name was Paul O'Neill. He's like a Treasury Secretary, I think, at one point, and he worked for Goldman Sachs. And he wrote a paper about, you know, basically emerging markets and trying to understand them and trying to understand the room for growth. And now it's become, you know, an economic powerhouse, such that, you know, a country like Saudi Arabia, which is integrated with every economy in the world, if not directly, indirectly. Now they've enticed Saudi Arabia to join formally into, you know, cooperative with all these other countries. It's amazing. And multipolarity, that's not, it's no longer hyperbole. Like the most hawkish people in the federal government, they can't even deny at this point that the power in the world is shifting to one where it's not centered on the US anymore economically. And, you know, look, there's a lot of naysayers when it comes to, you know, is China going to be the possessor of the world's reserve currency and displace the US? You know, I happen to think we're going to see in the near future a world with possibly 2 reserve currencies. I don't think America is going anywhere necessarily, but I think it's difficult to deny at this point the rise of China, and, you know, this economic bloc is really led by them. They're the strongest economy associated with it. But it's just incredible. I mean, we're living through, like, you know, really world changing shit here.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you. You know, when you look at the whole situation, it's clear that China is indeed on the rise. And one of the incredible things is when you look at Saudi Arabia, you know, they that's a big deal because the U.S. Dollar is pretty much reliant on what happens with petro. And Saudi Arabia, leading OPEC, uh, along with Russia, with OPEC Plus and such, they're now in this position where, you know, by proxy, China can kind of manipulate, you know, the U.S. dollar to some extent with oil prices, right? They're going to be able to influence Saudi Arabia a lot. I think that's my prediction. Teray, how do you feel about this situation? What is unique about these, you know, these 6 new countries that have now joined the BRICS economic coalition? What do you think here, Teray?
I won't. I won't cover the same ground that I covered for our stream yesterday, because I mean, just to gloss over the TLDR from yesterday's stream, like I was most surprised that Argentina had joined BRICS, just because like the country that in this hemisphere is the most addicted to IMF loans, and we've seen the fruits of that. Have in the past 3 years, it's gone from 8% of the population living under 5 equivalent US dollars a day to 35% of the population living under that level of poverty, as inflation has gone into like the triple digits. And all of the people like Milei in hardcore, you know, mainstream Argentinian politics, just talking about more dollarization of their economy, as if that's not going to make things worse. Like, this is an actual break away from that years long trend. So that was most surprising to me. So, but uh, what what Ben had mentioned that I would like to talk about today, I think he put it well, is just that, yeah, multipolarity, even as early as a year ago, or even as late as a year ago, was, you know, hyperbole. We could not imagine what that looked like, because this 30-year little mini era of the U.S. being a hyperpower is so ingrained in our minds that, you know, we can't imagine what organization of other regions of the world look like without us in it. And today, it's just striking what that looks like in terms of military cooperation. Because I had watched a video earlier today dropped by an old nemesis of mine, Peter Zion, a deep state spook, who was one of the first to start pushing the war with Mexico and the invasion of Mexico, who was just laughing off BRICS as, oh, they let in 6 new member states. Now they're not going to get anything done. Like, for someone whose job it is to give like TED Talks to the military-industrial complex to give them justifications for why they should start wars, he's a moron it shows just how fossilized the people in the deep state are. The people in the military-industrial complex, in academia, in these think tank circles, in the media, they are stuck even as late as a year ago, still thinking that the rise of the USSR is still like the looming threat, and the special military operation signals this grand return, like this grand and terrifying return of the USSR, and still thinking that China is going to be collapsing. Today is the day that China is going to be collapsing, and today is the day that Iran gets nuclear weapons. Very outdated, like by 20 years, the view of the military picture of the world. Not seeing that if Saudi Arabia didn't see itself getting along with Iran, they wouldn't have joined BRICS. But like, China has been successful in brokering a peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and now they're all in the same block. So this idea of like the super alliance that China and Russia have forged in the past year and change, I see that kind of alliance, that strengthening of military cooperation and financial assistance to defend against sanctions and also hybrid wars in the Gulf states, like that kind of block that the USSR was, that I could see that happening in the Gulf states once once the two biggest rivals and the two biggest military powers stop escalating with each other and start talking about regional security. I can see that happening with the two largest economies in South America, Brazil and Argentina. Also deepening military cooperation to actually deal with the threat of narco terror on the continent. Like, this era of international terrorist organizations like the cartels, like ISIS, like the PKK, like what have you. I just I see that actually being tackled by this sort of alliance, because nobody wants to live in this era of hybrid warfare. So that's the broad strokes that I'm seeing.
Well, speaking of military stuff in the context of BRICS, right? One of the things we noticed at this summit in South Africa was that Xi Jinping and Modi, India and China, right? They have decided to start having conversations at the summit about de-escalating tensions with border regions. And I think that's really, a big deal with India and China. They've been going at each other since 2020. I think we're something like 37 or 47 deaths related to Chinese and Indian combatants on their border. And now China and India are now moving in this direction where they want to resolve this border crisis. Ben, do you think that, as new countries continue, like Therese talking about, will there be, a resolution to a lot of the different existing conflicts that you have between other countries separate from the U.S. imperialists?
Yeah, look, I mean, I happen to think, even though this isn't a very popular view necessarily among communists, but I happen to think history shows the world is typically divided into spheres of influence of great powers. And when you see conflicts arise, it's typically because one region is having some sort of schism where part of it is, enchanted by entering another sphere of influence, or they view themselves as perhaps emerging into their own, regional power status. And in the case of India, I happen to think India and China, if you look at the growth of Indian GDP and Chinese GDP in the 20th century, there was a moment where it looked like the two were moving nearly in tandem. But China's pulled so far away from India at this point that it just doesn't make sense to have these little border skirmishes or, I call them geopolitical, clashes when it's so much more beneficial to work together. And you see Modi now, pretty consistently criticizing the West. You saw him make those comments with the moon landing that India made just the other day about the USA lying, for what do you say, lying for the last 50 years. Like, it's clear to me that lots of countries in the world, even what I would dub, second tier kind of powers, economic or otherwise, they are kind of catching on to the idea that with this emerging China being such a force that you can actually look at that as a basis through which you can break away from the West entirely. And lots of these countries, they've felt the brunt of, U.S. dollar hegemony, U.S. military hegemony, preventing or stifling their growth. And so I think a lot of countries like India is a great example, but there's many more that look at this as an opportunity to break away from conflicts that are unnecessary and actually see this explosive, potential for economic growth. So yeah, there's a lot of promise with that. And, we could see an era of, if I'm, projecting as optimistically as possible, a new Chinese peace in Asia. I think that that's entirely possible. And what would be interesting to me is to see, traditionally hostile powers. Namely, it's hard to say they're exactly hostile in the last decade or so, but countries like South Korea and Japan, which have been so closely linked with the West, but have seen, especially in South Korea, extreme levels of inequality, which of course leads to radical political movements. And often radical political movements, like we see with Trump in America, they lead to people coming to power who want to forge new relationships with, these traditional enemies. So it's possible that you see countries like Japan or South Korea in the next 10, 20, 30 years turn away from the US and look to China as, this regional power that they want to be on better terms with. And I think that could do nothing but good for that region. Imagine a world where North Korea, South Korea, and China are all linked economically. You're talking about a basis for a permanent peace in the Korean Peninsula. So, that's me being as optimistic as possible, but short answer, yes.
Well, I think that would be very exciting. That creates the potential for the reunification of Korea, which if you poll both South Koreans and people in North Korea, we know that, pretty much every Korean wants the Korean Peninsula reunified. Well, out of nowhere, another guest has entered our stream, so let's add him to it, and let me just briefly introduce everyone to my good friend, Idea Spirit.
Hello,
Idea Spirit, how are
going?
you doing today, my friends?
I'm doing great. Sorry, I'm still in the car, but I'll be able to talk. I'm almost home.
All right, well, welcome to the show, Idea Spirit. Do you have any social medias for other people to actually follow? Any Twitter that you would like to plug?
Just Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, idea_spirit.
All right, very good. So, Idea Spirit, to catch you up, we've been talking about what's been going on with the BRICS summit that happened in South Africa, and it is incredible stuff that's been going on. Real quick, How do you feel about the BRICS summit and the 6 countries, which I'll list off real quick for you and our guest, as well as Gan? Iran, UAE, Saudi Arabia, which I understand you're a little bit biased towards them, Egypt, Argentina, and Ethiopia. How do you feel about this whole situation idea?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about the BRICS summit. Sorry, so forgive me. But um, so all of those countries are prospective entries into BRICS, if I understand correctly.
Yes, so all 6 of those countries have now been entered inside of BRICS, which, in my opinion, Saudi Arabia is one of the most interesting additions to that list.
Yeah, I would say so. When it comes to like multipolarity and whatnot, I think like call me biased, I don't care, but like I think that Saudi Arabia is particularly pivotal to this kind of if there is going to be a multipolar world, Saudi Arabia is going to have a place in it. I mean, even as the leader of OPEC, just on a geopolitical level, it's the leader of the Arab world. You know, some might dispute this, but I would say it's undeniable. The leader of the Arab world, the leader of OPEC, and also because of the pivotal role of Saudi Arabia, like, if the United States, which it is losing favor of Saudi, like it is losing the favor of Saudi Arabia. Um, but if Saudi Arabia were to ditch the petrodollar, I mean, American unipolarity, sorry, will be over. So I I I think the Saudi Arabian entry into BRICS is long overdue. But to hear that the UAE was admitted as well is kind of interesting. I wonder why that's. I don't know why they would be. They're kind of an irrelevant country outside of like the flashy wealth and whatnot. But
I think that's a little bit fair to say, but I'm sure there might be a few people that are part of the United Arab Emirates that might have disagreement with that, of course.
yeah,
but but with that being said, let me ask Teray here. Get back to you. How do you feel about Saudi Arabia in particular having an influence? Do you think that they're going to have some sort of unequal influence compared to other countries that have entered?
But just real quick, Idea Spirit, just mute your mic.
oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can't expect there to be this linear level of influence. This like, oh, everyone is, or what Democrats like to say. There's not going to be equity. It's not going to be an equitable, evenly distributed system. I mean, just like China and Russia are pretty much carrying BRICS in terms of like doing all the awesome stuff, in terms of being the leaders of world peace and also leading in terms of economic growth, whereas Brazil it exists. And in terms of the new member states, Saudi Arabia definitely is definitely the wealthiest. But yeah, I have no reason to believe they'd be more influential than Iran. Yeah, just in terms of economic growth. Yeah, that's they have a lot of oil to spare, but oil is very abundant in the world. I think I think Iran, in terms of regional security, in terms of a population, yeah, it is much more of a player than Saudi Arabia, who's invaded places like Yemen, and who spend a lot of their oil money on flashy flashy strip malls in the desert. So not to belittle the fact that they're now part of this alliance, but yeah, I just think it gives other OPEC nations an opportunity to get the kind of wealth that Saudi Arabia has accrued. They now have that model available to them without that looming threat of U.S. intervention. So it's always a military thing. For me, it always comes for this part of the world, for like the former colonies, national struggle precedes the class struggle. We learned that in China. And and that we learned that in all of the African liberation struggles during the 20th century. Iran is the military player, not Saudi Arabia.
I would be inclined to agree, but only out of like just on the sole basis that like Iran is the military player out of necessity, right? The only like external engagement Saudi Arabia is like involved in right now would be Yemen. But I mean, in terms of military spending, Saudi Arabia spends much more on the military than Yemen. Sorry, Iran. But Iran, I would say, like, you know, when you're between a rock and a hard place, you have to kind of do what you have to do. And I think that's the case for Iran. Iran has more interest in expanding its military power than Saudi Arabia. I don't think there's any threat to like Saudi Arabian sovereignty or independence or like statehood or anything. Whereas with Iran, you have like America, the United States, the West, etc., etc. Stuff like
Well,
this.
one of the things that we can see is that Iran and Saudi Arabia are kind of, having a healthier relationship now, first thanks to China negotiating peace between these two countries. But now, with them both being members of BRICS, it means that economic ties can being built between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And that's a great direction, I think, for both countries, frankly, to go in. I mean, there's no reason for Saudi Arabia and Iran to be warring with each other. Honestly, when it gets down to it, their main enemy is the United States. It is the West, right? And these regional disputes really need to be put aside when you're dealing with, raging empires like the United States and the British and the EU and such and so forth. So, with that being said, I think now we're going to move to our next topic of discussion. Not a smooth transition, but nonetheless, we can see that what has been going on with Russia during this whole conflict or during this BRICS summit was quite interesting. It appears to be that Prigozhin was assassinated. At least that's the assumption we're all, including the Russian government at this point. Everyone believes that it was ill intent. It was not a situation where it was just a mechanical failure of the airplane. And now the conversation is beginning as the research and the studying of what exactly happened here. As Prigozhin has now been assassinated, where does that leave Russia and Wagner? Ben, would you be able to give your insights on that topic?
Yeah, I mean it's fucking crazy, guys. It reminds me a lot of the March of Justice, because when all that was going on, I mean, there's so many thoughts on it. First thing is, it's such a rapidly developing thing that like you can develop a nuanced take on it, and then within 5 minutes it's completely irrelevant because some new information came out. So I've been kind of waiting to give an analysis on it because there's so much I wanted to learn about, like, okay, well, how exactly did the plane go down? Where was it coming from? Where was it going? What happened to the plane that landed? And then, there's still things that I'm hearing, like I think I heard today, the plane that landed, I didn't hear a lot of other information about it, but it ended up taking off and headed towards Azerbaijan, I believe, like mysteriously. And it's not necessarily clear who's on it. I don't fucking know. Like, there's so many potential, conspiracies. I mean, like, is Prigozhin really dead? There's people who were reporting that immediately, right, with no evidence. And dude, like, it's a fucking plane crash. They're charred remains. Like, there's no way they would know that until they do genetic testing and all that stuff, which supposedly is going on right now. And I may be missing an update on that. If I am, someone tell me. But, look, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm assuming, as you put it, I'm assuming he's dead. So let's assume that Prigozhin's dead. What does this mean? First of all, I don't think the Russian government, or at least Putin solely, is responsible, because tactically it doesn't make any sense. Prigozhin was kind of out of the way. He was basically setting up shop in West Africa, attempting to strengthen bonds there. I mean, the only thing you could come down to is, like, it's just this petty revenge thing. And I get that, but I feel like the people who assert that narrative are the same people who insist that Putin's an irrational actor. Like, these are the Democracy Now! Kind of watchers who are just like, oh, he just kills anyone who he disagrees with. And it's like, I don't know if it really works like that. You know what I mean? I'm always a little hesitant to trust that line of thinking. So I don't know, but I have doubts about Putin's involvement for sure, the Russian government's involvement in general. From what I understand, the ballistics on the wreck are not consistent with Russian anti-aircraft technology. It's likely that the going theory now is the plane was somehow sabotaged, but they're not even sure how it was sabotaged. If you guys have seen the footage, it falls in a kind of a peculiar way. It almost looks like it's like falling apart, in midair. It's very weird. So, I don't know. There's so many questions that are unanswered. But in terms of Wagner and Russia's relationship, I really think, like, the March of Justice kind of showed that, like, it's not a great idea necessarily to rely so heavily on private military. I just think that it's not good for the soul of the nation, really, to have these, like, fractures within the the front, as it were. The people actually fighting this battle, which I know how we all feel about the SMO, but it is a contentious issue in some parts of Russia, and the last thing you want is to make it more contentious. Have these, like, warring factions and all this kind of stuff. And whether or not that was a psyop or whatever, everybody, Dylan Burns called me like a retard for saying that, but whatever, that's a different story. The point is, like, I think they need a united front here. You know what I mean? And I think that that's best done through, the actual Russian military and the Russian state being consistent in all these operations, be it in West Africa or in Ukraine, and not giving up, ceding any power or any more power than they have already to any sort of private military. And if Prigozhin, whether he's dead or he's just hiding somewhere in Baku, either way, it's for the best, I think, for Russia to have him out of the way. And now they can just focus on winning.
So, first of all, I just want to say, Dylan Burns calling anyone at all, that freaking Lego man himself calling anyone retarded or whatever, like, he needs to calm down.
Fuck that guy. That's all different
Dylan
story.
Burns himself is retarded. I would. It's like a badge of honor to be called a retard by here. It's like being called.
But with that all being said, when you look at this whole situation, Troy, do you happen to agree with Ben here that this, like, it's too early to really say for a fact that what transpired, any specific events? Do you agree with them?
Yeah,
How do you?
it's
sorry. Go ahead.
And yeah, it's too early to make a confirmation of how Prigozhin's plane was sabotaged or how it came out of the sky. I mean, it's
I
not
think
too
he's
early.
dead.
It's not
I
too early
would
to say that
make
he's
that
dead.
like
Yeah, it's not too
yeah.
early to say that he's dead. I mean, Putin, Ramzan Kadyrov, all
I
these
don't
people,
think he
all these.
was. I
Hang on,
would
hang
be
on, hang on, hang on,
tentative to say he
hang
was.
on,
Oh,
hang on,
sorry.
hang on, hang on.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Before
Go
I
ahead.
lose,
Go ahead.
1 second idea.
Apologies. Yeah.
before I lose my train of thought. Yeah, all these people in top level Russian positions are those like, yeah, the guy's dead. So I'm inclined to believe them, just for the sake of moving on with a serious investigation and not giving into conspiracy theory. Like with the March of Justice, you listen to the people, the top leadership positions who were involved, Putin and Prigozhin, who both said, "Yeah, this isn't a coup," and you get to the truth pretty quickly. Where everyone else is spinning these wild narratives. And again, you listen to people and top levels of leadership in Russia over this. He's dead. All right, let's move on and figure out what happened. And where I also agree with Ben is that that this is part of a larger trend of the integration of Wagner into Russian, like of the movement away from private military forces. China just happened to have the benefit of reorganizing its military like almost a decade ago because they saw the threat of splits in the military. It was a lot more fractured than it was today under Xi Jinping, and I think Putin had just learned the hard way and just had to make some difficult decisions of how to keep military security in a lot of places friendly to Russia, and that involved private military organizations. That was a big compromise. And we're seeing the negative consequences of that kind of compromise. You get someone who is as awesome as Prigozhin was erratic and at times very self-centered. And this rotation of Wagner out of Africa and out of Syria to be centralized more in Ukraine to wrap up their special military operation. The meeting that Putin had with the Ministry of Defense and with Prigozhin to absorb Wagner into the Russian military. Just the fact that Prigozhin was killed. Like, I personally think that, someone in the Russian government killed him. Whether or not that's true doesn't change the fact that he was outmoded. Months ago, he was outmoded. So, so it's this very violent end to this era that he led of, not quite mercenaries, getting some awesome wins for the Russian Federation, but whose necessity is no longer worth the risk.
Yeah.
So I'd like to change the direction of my question in particular for Idea Spirit.
Okay.
Do you think that Russia doing psyops for whatever given reason, whoever's doing them, do you think that's a new normal that we're going to see from Russia? Or do you think this is just kind of a, situational kind of thing that Russia will stop doing now that Prigozhin is gone?
I don't believe he was assassinated. So I don't. I mean, life is crazy. Things happen. The plane, any number of things could have happened. I mean, you can say what you want to say, but I don't believe he was assassinated. I'm not even like a pro Wagner. Wagner, sorry, I'm not a pro Wagner like person myself. I hate Wagner. I really hope now that Prigozhin is gone, that the Wagner group is also going to go with him. And and the reason I believe that is because for me it's. So you said you didn't want to call Wagner a mercenary group, but I would categorize it as that. I mean, look at what they're doing in Sudan. Look at what they're doing in any kind of African country. I know it's kind of like the liberal take or whatever to say this, but I mean, like, the reason that I believe this, at least, is specifically in the context of Sudan, because I've been following the Sudanese civil war very closely, more so than most. Um, it does seem to me like Wagner kind of steps in to support whoever is willing to sell out their country. At least that's what's happening in Sudan. There are like deals between the God, I forget what they're called. In Arabic, it's the RMS, I think. I don't know. I don't know. The rapid RSP, rapid RSF, sorry, in Sudan. There are deals between the RSF to like trade gold to Wagner in exchange for weapons. Either way, I don't like Prigozhin and I don't like Wagner. Russia is a little bit different. It's a bit of a mixed bag, but I don't know. I feel like uh China has a very different approach to Russia in regards to foreign or diplomacy, kind of the like global outreach. I'll call it that. I much prefer China's strategy to Russia's. Russia very much seems exploitative from my perspective, especially in the context of Wagner. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my
Well, it doesn't
response.
really answer the question, but I think that's okay because I think you gave a different perspective than what we normally have on the barracks. So uh, let's go a little bit farther then. So you feel this way about Sudan. I don't know enough about Sudan, but what I do know is that Wagner forces have been partially. It's kind of in the gray area right now, not just of everything that's going on, but different positions that the Niger government has taken recently. But with everything that's transpiring with ECOWAS and Niger since the military junta has taken over in Niger, Mali in particular has been accepting Wagner forces, and there's an open conversation about allowing Wagner eventually into Niger if ECOWAS were to invade, um, led largely by Nigeria, which we, from one of our barrack streams, we've pretty much shown that they're a puppet of the West, right? Leader, connected to a crooked drug uh, pushing in New York City. So like it's a very corrupt regime, and honestly, whether you like Wagner or not, I view Wagner going into its defend Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso as a good thing for building an African bloc capable of resisting Western imperialism. Do you share that view, or do you feel that these African countries should go in a different direction?
I don't share that view, and I'll explain why in a second. I don't because it's like okay, you get the Russian support, but in exchange for what? What are you like? There is no such thing as just there's no such thing as a foreign benefactor. Like, what are you selling out in exchange for that support? Right? Whether or not I support um the current government of Niger, ECOWAS or whatever, what like it's irrelevant in the context of Russian support or at least Russian involvement in the kind of situation, right? Because whether like say for example, I do support the current government of Niger, say, or Mali or whatever, Burkina Faso. say, for example, the current government of Burkina Faso. I fully support them, whatever. Hypothetically, in the context of Russian involvement, what are they giving up for that support? That is the issue. I don't believe it is an equal exchange. It's an exchange that happens out of desperation. And it's the same context in Sudan, right? I mean, the RSF is like, I think, like categorically, I would definitively say, categorically, the Rapid Support Forces led by Hemeti Dagalo in Sudan, categorically evil, categorically bad, universally hated by the people of Sudan, but they have the support of Wagner and I don't know if it's the Russian state, but I know specifically Wagner.
Okay. I'm interested to see our guests how they feel about what you're talking about. See if they share or disagree with your perspective. First, Trey, do you think that Idea Spirit here is, you know, giving a perspective that kind of might change your opinion, or do you disagree with that?
No, I'm not. I'm not willing to condemn rapid support forces. I mean, considering
Whoa.
considering that whole region of Africa is more intensely feeling this, like Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia have all seen state collapses because one tribe over another is trying to take control of the government. Like a stable state, a stable government, like a stable state body, is preferable to a failed, like, permanent civil war, like the balkanization of a country where all tribes are fighting each other all the time, like what Ethiopia is like on the verge of going through, what Somalia went through, what Nigeria went through a whole civil war about it in the 60s. I mean, like, that's this colonial legacy of designing African governments for different tribes to take power at different times and to like fight amongst themselves for political representation. Like,
Wait. But I'm going to push back a little bit before you continue, because so you said you're not wanting to condemn the RSF just yet.
I don't know. I don't know much about them. My focus was on West Africa, not on East Africa. But if Wagner is coming in to as predominantly to not as the main thrust of like military, not as the main thrust of military artillery, but to defend key assets and for military training and to act as security forces. It's to keep the country from collapsing, from going the way of Somalia.
In the context of Sudan, that's not the case. In the context of Sudan, the RSF are the rebels. In the RSF, okay, I'll give you context. In Sudan, so during the Darfur, I guess genocide, you could call it. I guess it's contested if it's genocide. Anyway, during the Darfur issue, you had back then they were called the Janjaweed in Sudan. They were led by Hemeti Hamdan Dagalo, the current leader of the RSF. He kind of got into that position through, he was a warlord, a local warlord who was kind of just in charge of skirmishes and whatnot, like a small force. Eventually, he got to the position of leading the Janjaweed. The Janjaweed did the entire Darfur genocide, whatever, etc. Then, when Omar al-Bashir got overthrown in 2020, 2019, I don't know, during the Sudanese revolution, he got deposed. the Hamdan Dagalo was a key player, and he had enough political clout to kind of negotiate his way into government. There was a transitional military council between the civilian government and the military government. Hamdan Dagalo had a seat in that. They drafted the new constitution in which the RSF was an official part of the Sudanese government. It was constitutionally authorized, where before it wasn't. It was just a militia. Anyway, the Transitional Military Council, in the constitutional agreement, I think after 2 years, they said they would hand over power to the civilian government. There would be an election. The election never happened. The civilian government wanted, the actual government of Sudan, wanted to get rid of the transitional military, the military, from having power. Sorry, my English is not amazing, but the civilian government wanted to get rid of the military. The military pushed back, and then a civil war started.
Okay, yeah. I think your English is better than mine. I think civil governments are overrated. Again, I don't know much about Sudan. I stopped reading Sudan after the civil war, after Bashir was overthrown, and there was that military council. Yeah. So I stopped looking into it years ago. But yeah, civil governments are overrated, especially on the African continent, where civil governments have always been in the past 200 years designed by colonial powers to pit tribes against each other. So centralizing authority under the military is not always a bad thing. I don't know if it's a good enough thing in this case to defend it, but I'm not going to write it off entirely because I don't know that much about it. Being a rebel does not always mean you're like a terrorist group. So if Wagner's working with them,
Teray, idea. Both of you guys, just real quick. I want to pass this over to Ben here. I want him to give his perspective on this whole conversation here.
Very quick, let me respond to what Teray said.
Do you think?
Just very quickly.
Okay.
In the context of Sudan, no, I don't think any Sudanese person supports the RSF. They're viewed as thugs. It's imagine if in the United States in the 60s, 70s, you had the mob, right, the Italian mafia, controlling the government.
Yeah, that's a very broad statement. So
no, I'm giving you actually because I know a lot about the Sudan. So being from Saudi Arabia,
again, they said the same thing. They said the same thing about the military junta in Myanmar. So, the same kind of tribes attacking each other, the same kind of government, the same kind of civil government put in place by Barack Obama, which led to the genocide of the Rohingya people. Because that's what So I'm not. Wait.
And this is where you're wrong.
Okay.
Because no. In the Sudanese context, both the civil government and the military government are both Arab. The Janjaweed, the RSF, is in the the International Tribunal Court, whatever. They're being charged with war crimes of genociding West African Chadians, okay, people from Chad, not Arabs. Both the civil, civilian government and the RSF are, at least in the Sudanese context, Arab. They're not warring tribes. It's not a tribal issue in the context of Sudan. So
I'll have to read more into it.
I'm telling you what's happening. It's not a tribal issue in the context of Sudan. When it comes to genocide, yes. Yeah. Wait. When it comes to the crimes that the RSF is accused of, yes, it is tribal. They are accused of genociding the Nuba people in Western Sudan, in Darfur, etc., etc. But Darfur is only one of the states in Sudan. The rest of Sudan is, I guess, in the Sudanese context, Arab, right? They consider themselves Arab. So it's not a tribal issue. The
Okay,
RSF
so
is just categorically
let's
evil.
get
It's just not.
non-smoker to give his input here. Ben,
Yeah.
how do you feel about this dialectic we're having right now? Do you lean more towards what Teray is saying, or do you lean more of what Idea Spirit is saying?
Ah, God, I gotta not to disappoint, but I'm a little less knowledgeable, I think, than Idea Spirit is on Sudan in particular. I don't have the best things to say about RSF, though. I do think that they've committed atrocities, and in terms of popular support, from what I understand, his analysis is correct. But if I remember correctly, we got here through a discussion about Russia's involvement in Africa more broadly, right?
Right.
And, I happen to think that, I mean, it's going back to what I said before about India and China resolving their differences through economic cooperation and this whole idea of spheres of influence. I mean, pragmatically, Africa is a by and large economically underdeveloped place. And that is the fault of the West, of course. I mean, just basically several generations of extreme exploitation of resources and human beings, underdevelopment, intentional underdevelopment of a resource-rich continent. And Africa is fertile soil for any power at this point to come in and assert itself, because there's so much disunity and chaos that whoever the strongest force is could potentially be in power in a given region. I happen to think in West Africa, which I can speak on with a little bit more authority because I've studied it more closely, that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, these are all countries who, through broad popular support, whether, if you held it to a vote, I don't know what the outcome would be, but let's suffice it to say there's a shitload of people in West Africa who support Russia straight up support Russia coming in and asserting themselves as, a regional power and assisting them in removing the US and specifically the French. And this is from, these generations of resentment from having their, resources taken from them by force or, going through. I mean, really, when you look at the problems in that region, America really began heavy investment in anti-terrorism about 20 years ago in West Africa. And since then, I don't know if you guys saw that Intercept article, there's been something like a 30,000% increase in incidences of terrorism since we started investing in counterterrorism there. We've done nothing but, leave these people open to terrorists, all in the name of supposedly helping them. So, of course, they're going to, side with Russia being this, promise of, probably a fairer basis of economic cooperation. And more importantly, I think to a lot of people there, an arrangement in which they'll be protected from fucking terrorists. Like that's probably the key thing to a lot of people there. So I happen to think, to put it simply, if they don't fall in with Russia, they'll fall in with France and NATO and the US. And I just happen to think that that's how this is playing out. It's objectively. And so I think it's obviously much better if they fall in with Russia. Russia is a challenge to the unipolar narrative that we've been living under for the last almost 100 years. And I think that's objectively a good thing.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you, non-smoker. I think that when you're looking at the situation in Africa, regardless of how we might feel about, Wagner forces in particular countries like Sudan, for example, right? The general influence of Russia inside of Africa has been a net benefit towards American or rather, African interest, to actually build themselves a way out of, the Western imperialist neo-colonial system that has been, keeping Africa in poverty, in debt. And that's something here in the barracks that we're trying to fight against. We're trying to fight against the Malthusian depopulationists. We're trying to fight against, the neo-colonial globalists. That's what we're trying to fight against. So, with that all being said, despite some disagreements on the topic, I think that we had a good conversation. I think that a lot of us have learned a little bit here, and I think it's now time for us to move on to our last topic today, and it's kind of a two-parter. And we're bringing things back to America, right? We're going to be talking about American politics, not so much global politics. But let's be real. If you're talking about American politics, you're also talking about global politics, because that's the world that we live in. But we had the Republican primary happen just 2 days ago now, and at the same time of the Republican primary, we had Donald. The debate of the Republican primary. We had Donald Trump being interviewed by Tucker Carlson. And last I checked, he got something over to the extent of 200 million views on that video. And a lot of people seem to be talking about it. You have people like Kyle Kulinski coping on Secular Talk and with his now wife, Crystal Ball, talking about how, it was a stupid decision, and Tucker, or rather, that Donald Trump should have been on the debate stage. But, it's very clear that X is now gaining a lot of traction. You have Tucker Carlson on there. It was a big FU to Fox News. And in the case of Donald Trump, it was a big FU for the Republican Party, right? Neither one of these institutions, the Republican Party or Fox News, have treated these people with any level of decency, in my perspective, right? But I want to get y'all's opinion. First of all, Ben, how do you feel about this whole situation with Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson, all while the Republican primary debate is going on?
Before you answer the question, can I invite somebody on?
No.
Oh,
Sorry.
really?
Well, there you go.
It's
who is
Kareem.
it?
I think you know Kareem.
Kareem. Yeah, I mean, it's a set panel, so no.
Oh,
Sorry.
Next time.
Yeah. Next time, I'm more than willing to talk to Kareem, but next time. So, non-smoker, you were going to answer that question, yes?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fuck, dude. Like, okay. First of all, I do want to preface everything I'm going to say with, I'm not a Trump supporter. I never have been. I look at the whole thing objectively and as pragmatically as I possibly can. And I think Trump is like a stick of dynamite in American politics, and that's why I think it's good that that's why I would like to see him win, even though I'm not a Trump supporter. With that being said, him not participating is no surprise whatsoever. I don't know if you guys have looked at polling. I'm not really into that kind of shit, but I just figured why not take a look. Real Clear Politics has an interesting graph. It's not even remotely close. Trump is like head and shoulders above every other candidate. So he's right when he says it's ridiculous for him to go on stage with these like peons, some of whom are polling in like the low single percentage, and just let them unload on him. People like Chris Christie, who, I'm from New York, so I'm a little familiar with his particular brand of like corruption and being a fat fuck. And I happen to think that, going on stage and attempting to debate a guy like Chris Christie as your political equal, who has zero chance of ever becoming president, who's just going to attack you incessantly, is a total waste of time. And in addition, I don't know if not a lot of people were talking about this. if I understand correctly, you had to sign an agreement to participate in this debate that you would support wholeheartedly whoever the nominee was. And to me, that means, again, I don't think it's not likely that any of these people will be nominated ahead of Trump unless they fuck him and throw him in jail or something like that, or screw him over some other way. But, you know, in some sort of weird scenario where DeSantis is nominated, now Trump has to endorse him just to participate in this fucking useless debate. It's a great thing that he didn't take part in it. It would have been a total waste of time. I didn't even watch it. As I understand it, Ramaswamy said a bunch of things, some of which were good and whatever, but I think he's, you know, a stooge, just like all these people. These are all rhinos, you know, and I did watch the Trump interview with Tucker, and, you know, look, like every time Trump talks, in my view, it's like 50-50. He says many things that I really like, that resonate with the people in the country who are angry and feel disaffected, many of whom are MAGA people, but not all of them, right? And I think that's good that you have a leading candidate speaking to those issues. And, you know, and then he'll say things that are factually untrue that I'm kind of like, what the fuck? And, you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's amazing that I was saying this to my chat, because I actually watched the whole thing on stream. We're living through an incredible time. I know I said that earlier about BRICS, but hope everybody who's listening really understands that one of the leading candidates, if not the leading candidate, including both parties, mind you, for president of the United States, is in a position where he's being essentially, you know, potentially sent to jail over totally bogus political bullshit. And he's so fucking Teflon, it doesn't matter. He doesn't even have to appear on mainstream news media. He can go on a social media site with, you know, Tucker Carlson and draw even more people to watch him. Like, he has so much power, and it derives directly from the people. It's incredible what we're seeing here. It's a really amazing shift because politics, I mean, I don't know how old you guys are. You know, I'm in my early 30s. Politics has never operated really like that in my life. And this is a far more revolutionary time, in my view, than even 2016 was. I mean, you look at the number of people who are excited about Trump, even like, I don't know if you guys seen these TikToks, like these, I guess Trump was doing some sort of motorcade through like a poor black neighborhood, and all these like black people are standing like, yo, that's my president. Like, that's fucking crazy. Like, those are people who hated Trump 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, what a shift, you know, in politics in America. It's amazing to watch. But yeah, fuck the Republicans, all of them that debated. And I like Trump just because it's a force of change, which is good.
There you go. Well, Troy, do you feel similar to Ben here, or do you feel that, you know, there's something more to Donald Trump that it makes him worth supporting?
No, what makes Donald Trump worth supporting is that his base is very unified and very disciplined, and they understand that Trump is the candidate that represents them. There is no second place. There is no alternative. They're politically mature enough to understand that, and I stand with them. Because again, we watched the Trump interview live, and none of us bothered to watch the Republican primary debates. Like, all those people are shills, and it's very obvious that they're shills, especially to MAGA people. Do I find a lot more fault with Trump than your average MAGA voter? Absolutely. But yeah, he is qualitatively different than everyone who was on that debate stage, who is not just just saying he is anti-war for the cameras. Like, no, he was the only president of the past several decades who didn't start any new wars, and who started the machinery going for the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Like, and then that's the most important issue, like, of ending the war machine. He's not just all talk about it. Yeah, he has been duped by the CIA to lob rockets at Syria and to be convinced that Qasem Soleimani was a terrorist rather than the butcher of ISIS who was responsible for butchering ISIS forces in Syria and helping to prevent ISIS from taking over that country. Yeah, he's not perfect. He's a billionaire businessman. Like, no one can expect him to be, Putin or Xi Jinping. But he is the candidate who threw chaos into the system that actually allowed people to take power and recognize what power looks like, so that we can organize outside of this, Obama era of smoothly polished lies. Because yeah, you're right. Everyone, like all those poor black people who hated Trump 5-6 years ago, they love him now, and the inverse is true for Obama. They loved Obama 5-6 years ago, and now they're just like, no, Obama is a snake. I ain't never seen everyone. If Obama went back to Flint, Michigan, I don't think he'd walk out.
Wait, sorry. I had to step away. What is the topic of conversation?
Okay, so the topic of conversation was we were generally talking about how during the Republican primary debate, you had Trump and Tucker Carlson having an interview at the same time slot. And we saw that, last I checked, he's gotten on that video 200 million views, which is basically the largest viewed video on social media history, unless you account for YouTube, right?
Mr. Beast has like 1 billion views.
Yeah, but that's that. Like I said, unless you account for YouTube. So within that context, do you think that Ideasphere? Do you think that that Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson are they really shaking up the political spectrum, as Ben here and Teray have been talking about? Or do you think it's just going to be the same old when it comes to American politics?
I think, okay. Yeah, if I'm being honest, honestly, Tucker, I like Tucker Carlson. Personally.
Your mic might have cut out. Okay, so I think we might have lost Idea Spirit, because I do not hear him. All right, well, that's strange. I guess we'll just move on. With that all being said, I tend to agree. You see the political spectrum is really getting shaken to its core now with Donald Trump. Not just in 2016, but the direction that we're moving towards, going towards 2024. I don't think politics will ever go back to the Barack Obama era, right? Even under Joe Biden, he's kind of forced in a lot of ways to, as elderly and decrepit as he is, he's forced to at least act like he cares sometimes, right? He's forced to, be, kind of thrown around, so to speak, to try to get ahead on issues. Now, he fails most of the time while trying to do this, but it seems like, the neoliberal and neoconservative establishment are at a point where they're trying to figure out how in the world do we deal with a Donald Trump, which is why you see, all of the judicial system going after Donald Trump. That's why you see the DNC, over and over and over again, focusing their whole political campaigns about being anti-Donald Trump, right? And doing all of these, stupid indictment trials or what have you. This is where we've seen the Democrats pushing, and it seems like the Republicans are desperate to try to find an anti-Trump candidate. So you have basically the whole political system. That you have the CIA, the FBI, you have the Republican and Democratic establishment. You have the judicial system, every part of the freaking government is trying to figure out how the hell do we get rid of Donald Trump, which leads me to kind of bringing up one of the questions that I was surprised that Trump was just completely unwilling to answer. And Tucker Carlson posted at least 2 times. And I'm going to ask you the same question, Ben. Do you feel like the deep state or whoever related in our government is going to assassinate Donald Trump?
You know,
Wait, wait. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Let
Sorry.
let Ben answer the question, and then we can go back to you, Idea Spirit.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I'll make it fast. Idea Spirit, I want to hear from you too. Just simply, I'm gonna say no, only because. And listen, I'm gonna preface it by saying, common sense tells me no, but these days common sense is proven wrong really easily. So, common sense tells me no for this reason. People are so charged up right now. And so unwilling to trust government narratives. And the people who are least trusting of institutional knowledge and government narratives are Trump supporters. And I think if Trump died in a mysterious way, even if it was legitimate, he's hit by a drunk driver or something, I mean, people are going to bug the fuck out. So I think, listen, we have to understand, like, these people might be evil, but they're smart, and I think they know, okay, killing him is not an option at this point. He's gained too much traction with these, very, very amped up people. I think they're going to try to go the legal route and just stall, and hope that, as you said, someone from this Republican field can get enough support to then, weaken him in some way. I think that's what they're hoping for. But no, I don't think they're gonna murk him.
Okay. So, Idea Spirit, now that you came back, I'm going to just kind of repeat the same question I just asked Ben and Teray here. And then after I ask you, I'm going to go back to Teray. Okay. So, do you feel like with the whole establishment, the Republican, the Democrats, the judicial system, the CIA, the FBI, it seems like Donald Trump is being attacked from all ends of the government right now. Do you feel like if it gets to this point that they're going to attempt to assassinate Donald Trump?
I feel like sorry. I couldn't hear you. I was a little bit distracted. But I think you're saying the establishment is attacking Donald Trump. And I would agree with you. I would say, like, at this point, it's already too late. And that's kind of what I thought you could hear me before, but I guess not. What I was saying earlier when you asked me before is that I think as of right now, I like what's his name, the Fox News. I think he got fired from Fox News. But he used to be. You said that Donald Trump and somebody else.
Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson. Yeah, I like Tucker. He is funny. But as of right now, I don't think that he has as much of a influence as he did before. It's the same with Trump. I think Trump is it's over for him. I mean, he's facing how many indictments? Like five indictments in like 4 different states. I don't know. The establishment is coming at him hard. So when it comes to influence, I don't know. For Trump, I think it's over, and I think that also means it's over for the Republican ticket in the election, because I mean, who the fuck is going to vote for Mike Pence? Who is going to vote for Ron DeSantis? Who is going to vote for RFK, who was, I mean, I think it's a pretty clear, open, and cut win for Biden in this next election. Even though Biden is probably the least, honestly, if I was American, I would vote for Biden over Ron DeSantis or RFK or anybody else because when it comes to the Republican ticket in particular, it's all like culture war nonsense. I don't feel like I live in the Midwest. I just don't see Americans resonating with the culture war, the LGBTQ, whatever, etc., etc. People are worried about like paying rent. They're worried about like making ends meet. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They have family in the hospital that they can't take care of, and etc., etc. I just don't see Ron DeSantis winning anybody over. Like if you're worried about if you don't make enough money, you're worried about making ends meet, and the lead presidential candidate on the Republican ticket is talking about homosexuality in schools or whatever. I mean, here where I live personally, that's not a thing, right? It might be a thing in big cities, but in at least in Middle America, in the Midwest, in small town Midwest America, that's not a thing. People don't really. In the schools here, there is no such thing as fucking LGBTQ indoctrination, whatever. And that's the big focus of Ron DeSantis' campaign. But as far as Trump goes, I feel like the indictments are going to. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a very big reality. He's going to go to prison, or at the very least, he's going to be convicted. Right? The prosecutor, he might work out a deal where, he doesn't do any jail time, or he might do some jail time. But even if he does get elected, um, he can't pardon himself in the state of Georgia. I don't know. I think it's over for Trump.
Okay.
And
So
as far,
let me bring that question to Ray here. Trey, do you agree with idea Spirit here? Do you think it's over for Donald Trump?
No, I think the era of like a real era of a dual contending power is approaching. Because Trump, for whatever historical fluke, understands that as soon as the people turn away from him, that's when he dies. Like, it's not just irrelevant, but that's like, he goes to jail and gets Epsteined. I want to believe that that's why he was so vanilla during that Tucker Carlson interview, because he understands his impact. He understands when he's away from Twitter for almost 3 years. That's when he's back on Twitter, and he has 230 million eyeballs on him. Like, I think he knows that if he were just to like stir up too much drama and say things that were wildly out of character, people would be like alienated from it. But like, if you look at that mugshot and just how cool that mugshot is, the effect that I'm Idea Speeder, I muted you. I'll unmute you when I'm done talking. It's how cool everyone thinks the mugshot is when he's going to Georgia to get arrested, and like, again, I've lived in Atlanta long enough that I know what support from the hood looks like, and like Trump is the most gangster president we've ever had, and him being arrested and like selling T-shirts of his own mugshot and refusing to participate in the debate. Like, this isn't 2016 anymore. He doesn't have to participate in the system to gain legitimacy. He's won it, and the people are standing by him even when he's arrested, even when he's under all of these indictments, even when there's 24-hour news coverage lying about him. Like, the state only moves in to assassinate political dissidents in this country when they have been made to reach their lowest point. That's what they did with MLK. That's what they did with Malcolm X. That's what they do. They disconnect you from the people. They bring you to your lowest point, and that's when they take you out, when the people are no longer there to support you. And Trump is at his highest approval ratings that he's ever been. He's literally 4 to 5 times more popular than the second place candidate, and a lot more popular than Biden.
I agree with.
And I'm not done, man.
No, I know. I agree with you.
I'm muting you again. So it's just he knows that his connection comes from the people, not from the system that is trying to make him illegitimate. So I think, he is just looking to build a dual and contending power. So.
Well, I think Idea Spirit may have rage quit. Oh no, here he is. Here he is.
I'm still
okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
So okay.
Let me just say we are very close to a point where I want to actually end this show. So I'm going to just, instead of having open dialogue, I'm just going to ask everyone for a kind of a closing statement today, right? Because we've gone on for like an hour and a half. It's time to move towards the end of the show. So, with that being said, let's start. I'm going to start in the opposite direction I normally would. Idea Spirit, what is your closing remark for today's stream?
Well, okay, let me, first of all, I saw in the chat somebody said, I would vote for Biden or something like that. Somebody called me an idiot. No, I don't. I'm not a Biden supporter at all. What I was saying is over Ron DeSantis, I would, first of all, Ron DeSantis is a fucking cartoon character. I would never, if I was an American, I'm not an American, I can't vote at all. I would not vote for Joe Biden. But if it was between Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden, I would vote for Joe Biden. I absolutely dislike Ron DeSantis. I dislike everything that he's running for. I like Trump 100%. He is a charismatic individual. I like the MAGA movement. I would call myself a MAGA communist or something. So when it comes to Trump, I do like his kind of appeal. And I do think he does appeal to a lot of Americans, especially when it comes to those that feel kind of disenfranchised by government, etc., etc. I mean, I don't. I would say that Trump cares more about the average American, or at least his platform is more focused on the average American than Joe Biden. But Ron DeSantis is kind of he kind of like the impression I get from him and his platform is like a rich law student, Harvard graduate, never struggled in his life. It's very much like a white glove politician. If I was an American, I would never in my life vote for Ron DeSantis. But to address what you were saying, Turi, I think when it comes to the indictment, I really think the establishment is trying to take Trump down. And that is why I don't think even if he does win the majority of Americans over, there is a good chance that he will go to jail. I mean, the Georgia DA is acting independent of the federal whatever, like the federal prosecutor. I'm not well versed in the American legal system, but I know they have like states and then federal. But from what I understand, even if he does win the election, there is a good chance that he will end up in jail. The establishment is trying very hard to discredit him and take him down. And on that basis, I don't think that a lot of people, even if they do support him, will end up voting for him. It's just the strategic option. And the next most popular candidate would be Ron DeSantis. But Ron DeSantis is not. I don't think he has the same appeal as Trump does. I really don't think so. He is not. He to me he seems like a robot. He does not seem like a real person. I don't ever see myself voting for him. If I was in America, I would never vote for Ron DeSantis. I would literally write my name on the ticket before I vote for him, or I would vote for anybody, like even RFK, even what Mike Pence. Mike Pence doesn't have the support. I just don't think there is any hope for any Republican candidate. And I will I will put $1,000 on a bet anybody who is willing to take me up on that a Democrat will win this election, because the Republicans just have not put up somebody that can viably win. $1,000 I will bet, and I'm not even somebody that bets, but I will bet $1,000 that the Democrat will win this election, because like, who the fuck are people going to vote for? Donald Trump, who is facing 4 indictments? I understand the MAGA base has strong support, but like, be realistic. I would like Trump to win this election, but no, and nobody is going to vote for Mike Pence because he betrayed Donald Trump. And when it comes to Ronald DeSantis, he just is not a real like, I don't like him, and I don't think people like him unless they are above the age of 80, because that is the people that he is targeting. But the majority of people that are going to be voting are not above the age of 80. That's kind of what I was trying to get across. I don't want to, like, when I say that I would vote for Joe Biden, I'm saying, like, compared to all of the other choices on the Republican ticket, Mike Pence, I don't even know what the fuck he's campaigning for. Ron DeSantis, I don't like him. He is a fucking robot. He's not, like, he's just not a likable person. The Indian guy, whatever, Vereshwani, whatever. I don't know much about him, but I don't think he's going to win. None of them are as appealing as Donald Trump. In 2016, I would have voted for Donald Trump. In 2020, I would have voted for it because he has an appeal. He has, like, he draws people in. MAGA is like, if you look at Obama, I don't know what Obama's slogan was, but there is nothing comparable to Make America Great Again. You know what I mean? MAGA.
Okay. Your time
Yeah,
is
yeah.
up, Idea
Yeah.
Spirit.
Sorry, just one more thing. MAGA is a definite.
No.
MAGA is a definite
We
thing.
have to end the show, Idea Spirit.
That's fine. But if anybody
Okay.
wants to respond to that, feel free.
All right. Well, with that being said, Trey, what is your closing remarks for the show today?
Really, as the one who made the thumbnail for this live stream, with the caption "This is the end" on the thumbnail. Yeah, I gotta say that this is the end for this European style parliamentary bullshit system of running things. Democracy is nothing but the simulacrum of people's power, and the people have felt a taste of actual sovereignty, not just in this country, but in countries all around the world, and they're starting to really fight for it in a unified and militant way, especially on the African continent. What we're seeing here in the United States is being magnified 100-fold around the world, and I am excited to be entering this new era of centralizing, of brutally centralizing people's authority under this new leadership.
There you go. Now, Ben, what is your closing remarks today?
Yeah, man. Idea Spirit. I will take that fucking bet any day of the week, dude. Any day of the week. $1,000. I mean, bro.
One
Do you
thousand
know?
dollars.
Do you know what Biden's? I mean, I realize this isn't definitive. Biden's approval rating is like
No, no,
40
no.
fucking percent. You know what I'm saying? Like
I
people are
will
pissed.
say, I will say, okay, look, if you're going to take the bet, $1,000 a Republican candidate does not win.
We'll talk after stream. We got to work that out because that's a very good wager. It's hard for me to say no to that.
Okay.
But okay, just real quick to wrap it up because I know you guys want to get going. In my view, a lot of people say it's very cliche. You know, we're a very divided country right now, and the truth is we are, but we're not divided. You know, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. We're divided in terms of people who understand the political shift that's going on right now and people who are fucking in denial. And we're not just talking about political shift in America, we're talking about globally. Like there's a tremendous amount of change going on in a very short period of time. And there are some people in this country who it's like they're insulated so much from it for various reasons, either because of age or economic status or whatever, or their own little identity group keeps them insulated from what's actually happening in the fucking world. But, you know, those are the only people who don't understand the significance of, you know, MAGA and this broad-based, you know, political upheaval that's going on. And it's distinctly anti-Biden and anti-Democrat and anti-establishment. So whether it's Trump or someone else, I'm really hoping, you know, optimistically, someone seizes the moment and really ushers us into an age where, you know, we have a new America that can properly orient itself towards this new world political shift and fight for American citizens and our well-being. And, you know, I have my doubts about Trump. I really do. But what you can say for Trump is the fact that he at least understands those shifts are happening in some way, even if it's like a very, you know, crude understanding of it. He still has an understanding of it. A lot of these other people, you know, political figures, maybe they understand it too, but they're actively trying to stop it, you know, or keep it out of the public's eye, this change that's occurring. So I don't know, man. It's like I said, exciting times. It's cool to talk to you guys about it. It's so refreshing not to talk to fucking shit libs on Twitch. Like, dude, it's fucking like unbelievably difficult. But yeah, I look forward to talking more again, guys. It was fun.
Absolutely, my friend. And with that all being said, I'm just going to give my closing remarks here. First of all, this is an important question that I have posed to Idea Spirit before, and I want to hear the answer to you from each and every one of you guys. Okay, what is the significance of a square in nature? Go ahead. Feel free to answer it. Idea Spirit, can you explain to them the significance of a square in nature?
There is none. There is none. But
there is no significance to a square in nature.
No.
Even though
But
squares do not normally occur in nature.
Yeah, you answered your own question. If they don't occur in nature, there is no significance.
There is significance because
it's like
not
saying, what is the significance of a cigarette in nature? Well, cigarettes don't occur naturally.
Well, it depends on your definition of a cigarette. But anyhow, with that all being said,
I was just one thing to say.
Okay.
Anybody that disagrees with me, I am in the barracks Discord. You can. I specifically want to talk to UBK.
Hop in the voice.
Right.
Hop in the VC in the voice chat. Hop in the Thunderdome. If you
And with
dare.
that all being said, guys, if you're not in the Barracks Discord server right now, what are you doing?
What the hell are you doing?
What are you doing?
Get your life together. Links dropping in the comments right now. Join that shit.
And with that all being said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming to our wonderful power panel. And let me be clear, we are going to have a great relationship here at the Barracks with all of our fellow content creators. So if you're a content creator like Ben here, make sure you check out the Discord and get in contact with us because we want to platform you. All right, with that all being said, I'm the Yankee Tanky. This is the Barracks, and we are going to destroy the globalists. Good night.